Tonight's number is a big one. 15.2 million. 15.2 million. That's how many votes President Obama received from voters aged 18 to 29 in the 2008 presidential election. 15.2 million. That's a big number. Let's take a closer look. Of the entire 18 to 29 population, there are 23 million voters. That means the president got 2/3, 66% of that vote back in 2008. It is critical to the president to reach out to that group again this time around. But will young voters turn out as heavily next year? And will they support the president in such big numbers? CNN contributor Eric Erickson is the editor-in-chief of the conservative blog RedState.com. Matthew Segal is president of OurTime.org, a get-out-the-vote organization targeting youths that's been approached by the Obama team. And Cornell Belcher is a Democratic pollster who's working for the president's re-election campaign. Let's all listen. The president is out on the road. He's trying to appeal to every different constituency he wants, but he's making a special appeal to young voters, trying to take all the technological advances he made in the last campaign and make them even better next time.
We're going to make these changes work for students who are in college right now. We're going to put them into effect not 3 years from now, not 2 years from now. We're going to put them into effect next year because our economy needs it right now, and your future could use a boost right now.
That's the president's college loan appeal today, not his technological appeal. We'll get to the technology in a minute. But, Matthew, from a policy standpoint, this is the president using this is an official event here, not a campaign event, trying to say, listen, I'm going to help you pay off your college loans. When you talked to people that you associate with now, 66% of the vote last time, can the president expect anywhere near that number this time?
I think if the president continues to invest his time, energy, and resources in young voters, they will be there for him, simply because this is a transformative politician who talked about taking on a system that's been bought off and proving the skeptics and the cynics who've doubted young people for many, many years wrong. And I think if he can continue that messaging, we'll be there for him. And
yet, Cornell, 18.1% unemployment rate among people aged 16 to 29. Now, the youngest in that group can't vote, but 18.1 unemployment rate. No offense to the president. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much you target people. If you've got that tough of an economic situation, some of those people either aren't going to vote or they're going to blame the guy in charge, whether that's fair or not.
Well, look, they are a tough group, but they're a critical group. I mean, 11% of the electorate last time around was new electorate. We changed the face of the electorate. We did it largely with younger voters and minority voters, and we ran a 30-point margin with that electorate. We changed the face of the electorate in some of these battleground states. You wonder how he won Virginia, North Carolina. It's because we changed the face of the electorate. He has to have that vote. But at the same time, when you look at those unemployment numbers, it's interesting because the voters who are most optimistic about the direction of the country are actually the younger voters. That's right. They're frustrated about sort of Washington in general, but they're not blaming the president. They're frustrated by the way Washington acts. And I think the challenge for the president will be to sort of channel that frustration into participation again.
So, Eric Erickson, let me break this down in two parts. There's a who and there's a what. Let's start with the who. Again, no offense to John McCain, but there was a generational contrast last time that played out in favor of President Obama. He was the younger candidate. He was more in tune with technology. Not only so he spoke the language of these voters. Who, when you look at the Republican field, has the best chance of chipping into that 66%?
Can I go with none of the above? I think that the person most likely to chip into that is the president himself. You know, a lot of the rhetoric we're hearing from the Democrats right now on turning out the youth vote, they also said in 2010. The difference is he wasn't on the ballot in 2010, but they tried very, very hard. The president, towards the end of the 2010 campaign, going to a lot of his college campuses. I remember Cornell being very upset with a lot of the union leaders saying he was wasting his time doing it. But the youth vote didn't turn out in 2010. And a lot of the polling is suggesting there's a great deal of apathy now about it. The president can excite them probably better than any of the Republicans can. The youth typically lean more towards the Democrats to begin with anyway until they get out into the workforce. But at the same time, they want to have something, and they've become much more cynical since 2008.
Eric makes an important point, and I'll bring you into the conversation. But if you look at Stan Greenberg, Quinlan Rosner for Democracy Corps, it's a Democratic polling group, approval rating among youth voters, 40% approve of the president's job performance, 53% disapprove. So that's a disapproval number that suggests that some of them aren't going to vote for him.
Here's the thing. I'm going to throw out the approval number because approval doesn't necessarily mean support. Look, I don't approve of most of the politicians in Washington right now, but guess what? I'm going to support the president. And here's the thing. Eric's absolutely right.
But you're invested in the Democratic Party. A lot of these voters, it was a date last time. Are they going to marry?
That's the point I'm going to. They were invested in Barack Obama. And there's a difference. Eric's absolutely right. That 11% of the new electorate, they were Obama voters. They weren't weren't Democratic voters. They had chosen not to vote before, and they made a rational decision that politics was not the vehicle for them to bring about change. They were Obama voters, not Democrat voters, and the Democratic Party has to work harder to bring them in the fold as Democratic voters. They're Obama voters.
Cornell makes an interesting point. 4 out of 10 young people today don't even identify with political parties. It's the hyper-partisanship that's turning my generation off. So we're listening to the candidates who are talking to us on the issues of the day, which are jobs, jobs, jobs. Now, you look at the Occupy colleges and Occupy Wall Street protests that are happening across the country, they're happening for a reason. We've defaulted on a promise that if you go to education, if you go to higher education, you take out all this debt, these student loans, that you're going to graduate with a job that will be there for you. Well, that's no longer the case, and that's why the president today is speaking out on things he can do through his narrow ability with executive privilege to make it a little bit easier and put more money in the pockets of young people.
And so, Eric, come in on that point. If you wanted to counter the president, and again, he could have a counter argument back, but you could run an argument to young people saying he promised you hope. Where's the hope? He promised you change. Washington is just as bad, if not worse. But you have to have an aspirational, inspirational person to do it, to compete with him.
Right. You know, we tend to look at youth voters or Hispanic voters or Jewish voters as separate demographic blocks. They all kind of flow together, the approval ratings and what have you. And that's one reason, frankly, Herman Cain is shining so well within the Republican primary right now. He probably won't be the nominee given his fundraising, although it's going up, and given his organization. But he's the only Republican right now who's resonating across demographic lines with an optimistic message, the proverbial happy warrior, if you will. You listen to Mitt Romney, you hear a technocrat. You listen to Rick Perry or Newt Gingrich, you hear someone who's rather angry. You listen to Herman Cain, you hear a guy who's happy. He may step in it on occasion, but he's happy. And the Republicans are going to have to, whoever their nominee is, make their message a happy warrior message, not a doom and gloom message.
You're nodding in agreement.
That's spot on. They want to be inspired. They want to be hopeful. I mean, they're fundamentally Americans. They want to be optimistic about the future. And what we see is the anger that they feel from the Tea Party really turns them off. I mean, no one has a lower approval rating than Tea Party among younger voters right now.
But yet those people at those protests are angry too.
The people at the Tea Party or the
Occupy?
Well, the Occupy protests are angry that the system is more accountable to bankers and big businesses who've bought off our democracy than it is to the middle-class people. That's just a simple message.
Matthew, thanks for joining us. Appreciate seeing you. Let's stay in touch during the campaign. Cornell and Eric are going to stay with us. Next, the reporter whose tactics